the ability to go through the things I need to go through and then make this a message that everybody can understand from a relevant standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint. That's why I give you all the praise and glory. In Jesus' name, everybody say amen. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. When I announced this on Sunday, I said, we're going to have a class on how to reduce debt and be debt-free. So we're still going to talk about that, but I don't want to discourage anybody, because some people say, well, I can't get debt-free right now. Well, we're going to talk about reducing your debt so you can be debt-free. But in nothing else, we can get it reduced and give you some methods. And then we want to talk about your credit score, how to keep that up and what you need and how to check it and make sure that you don't have no frivolous information on there. So we'll talk about that. So hopefully we should be done by 8:15. We normally do a 45-minute block. So, all right. So y'all can just follow. I give you the handout. That way you don't have to remember a lot of stuff. You can write notes on there if you want to. But I'm basically going to read the handout, and then that way we'll discuss. I will ask questions as I go along, and I want people to raise their hand. And Brother Tony got the mic, so he'll bring it to you so everybody can hear it. Plus, we're doing this on Facebook tonight too, so we got some people that's I told on Facebook to listen tonight. Brian was off tonight, so he was able to come out and get us put on Facebook. So we do have that too. And if you don't, we got extra handouts we're gonna have. So if you want to give this to somebody else on the way out, you can, because I made extra copies. If not, then you can just tell them to go to YouTube or just use or make copies of what you have. All right, so we're going to talk about three things. Discussion 1 is how to manage debt. Discussion 2 is understanding credit. And discussion 3, we're going to give you the final Bible scriptures. We're going to start off with a couple Bible scriptures at the beginning, but we're going to have some more at the back that's related to this subject. So Psalms 37, verse 21, King James Version said, the wicked borroweth and payeth not again. So these are people who borrow money and don't pay it. That's why they got bad credit. Or the people that you give money to, family or whoever, and they don't pay you back. But the righteous shareth mercy and giveth. So if you are, and one thing that we talk about all the time when we're dealing with, from a biblical standpoint, we give our tithes and we give our offering, but I always talk about how God can give us more than enough. By us giving us more than enough and running over, then that way we can pay our tithes and offering. We also can help other people. And so that's what I try to do. I try to help other people with what God has blessed me with. Once I, pay my bills and give my tithes and offerings, and then what I have left over, I help people out all the time. And I think that's a blessing too. Not only because you can, but because God see that and he bless you again. I just believe there's a boomerang effect for everything we do as far as giving. Psalm 37, verse 21 and 22 from the Message Bible says, wicked borrows and never returns. Righteous gives and gives. Generous get it all. In the end, stingy is cut off at the pass. So, the Bible encourages us to give. The Bible encourages us to, when we borrow, to pay back. So we understand that's dealing with what? Credit, right there. Because if you don't pay your bills or your car note on time, you get penalized for that. And I was talking to somebody not too long ago, they had to get a rental car, even though they had a credit card, but they still made them put the deposit down, because they checked the credit and they wasn't good enough for so they gave them the car, but they had to put some money down just to get it. And so that's why it's very important. Well, that's one reason to have a credit card too, but they check your stuff now. Even when you rent an apartment, they check your credit. You sign the paper, they're going to check it. And that's going to determine how much you have to pay up front, or even they'll let you even live in the place. So we'll talk about that as we go along. All of us need to know how to manage our debt and credit. We must be able to balance the amount of debt we accumulate versus our available income. So our income is going to determine basically from the start on how much debt we can handle. So we got to understand that. So when we have too much debt, it will eventually affect our credit. If you have too much debt, even if you pay it on time, even if you have, because one thing they do when they do your credit score, if if 30% of your credit card line is being used overall, they would deduct points from your credit score. So the only way you're going to find that out, other than looking at your statements and calculating, you got to go like creditkarma.com, which I'm a member of, and they'll tell you, what your percentage is. They give you a score. They'll tell you why it went up or down, and then they'll give you a little note if you, they always say keep your credit card balance less than 30% of what you owe. But they don't. But they don't penalize you. They do tell you by individual, but if it's 30% or if it's less than 30% total, depends on how many credit cards you got, then they don't really hurt you that bad. But it just depends on what your credit line is. That's why I always tell people, you got a credit card, don't stop using it. Use your credit card at least twice a year. The reason why you want to use it twice a year, because one, you don't want them to cut it off, because that's credit history. And your credit history is another reason why your credit score can be high, because the longer you have a card, the better score you get. So I try to use my cards at least twice a year. Go buy something that you're going to pay for anyway, so then you just pay it off in like 2 or 3 months so they can get a little interest. But if you don't do it, they send you a note, and by the time they tell you, they already done cut it off. So it's not because it's a negative thing, it's because you're not using the card and you don't want to try to keep up with it. They just find somebody else they can send the card to use money to get them so they can use credit. In today's society, we need to have the ability to borrow money to buy a home, car, furniture, etc. So we need credit. Most people are not going to be able to get a house without credit. Most people are not going to be able to get a house with the furniture without credit. You just need credit. So you got to make sure that you can manage it better and keep it at least a score. They say right now try to keep your FICO score 680 or above, but I always try to tell you to keep it above 700. And that way you got some room if you fall back a little bit. The amount of debt we have and how we manage our credit will determine our borrowing power. So, sometimes you go get a car, for instance, and depending on your credit, you can get it with zero down. But depending on your credit, you may have to put some money down. So it just depends on how they do that. But you can get a new car or even a used car with zero down payment if your credit is really good. You don't have to put nothing down. But sometimes they have formulas to determine that. Okay, definitions. Debt is the amount of money borrowed by one party from another. A debt arrangement gives the borrowing party permission to borrow money under the condition that it is to be paid back later, usually with interest. That goes when you go to a bank, and that goes when you give somebody money. So when you tell them, now see, this is the thing. When somebody say, "Hey man, let me have some money. Let me have $500." Now when they say it like that, they didn't say, "Can I borrow $500?" Did they say that? They say, "Let me have what? $500." So they're telling you they're not gonna pay you back. So you got to make them say, "Wait a minute, now hold up. Do I supposed to give you the money, or you gonna be borrowing the money?" He said, "Oh, I didn't say that." No, you didn't say that. So this is a loan, brother. So you gonna owe me back, and I don't have interest on it too. When I was in the Army, when I went to Germany, I was right out of high school. So I didn't spend a lot of my money. I always had money. I never been broke my whole life. I always had money. So I was the barracks banker. So hey, Bird, let me have 20. I said, okay. I said, how much you gonna give me back when you get paid? Oh man, what you want back? I said, I want 25 back. And they'll give it to me. Because they didn't have no money, they was broke. So they knew I had money. I didn't ask what they're gonna use the money for, But they'll give me, it was $5 interest on every $20 bill. And the thing is, they knew if they didn't pay me back, not only was I going to say something, but they knew I was the only one that had the money. So they needed me. Yes, go ahead, Tony. You got a question. Tony right behind you with the mic so the people on Facebook can hear us.
So you actually, even today, when someone borrows money from you?
No, I don't ask for interest anymore.
Okay. I just wanted to say.
All I ask is that you pay me back. But when you're young like that, and people desperate. I mean, they be desperate. You can see it in their face. Oh, they're going to give you that $5 back. They don't even question it. They don't ask. They didn't say nothing. But no, I normally, a lot of times, y'all don't know this, but you don't know this, but I told the members at the beginning of the year, Lord told me to bless someone every month with $100 every month that's in need. And so I don't really know who it is until I find out. When I talk to people and they tell me they got an issue, then I give them, I don't even tell them, I just write them a check, give it to them, and I walk away because I'm not taking it back. So it's almost like I gotta find somebody, not look for it, but it just works out that way. Some people I done gave money more than 1 month because they was going through some stuff. And they called me and I talk about it. So I said, okay, I got a person right now I'm thinking about giving some money because I got somebody, the guy that supposed to bought my dad's car, he backed out on me because his brother died and he didn't have any insurance, so him and his mama had to bury him. And the money that he was going to give me for the car, and he works out of town too, because I've been waiting on him. He said he can't afford it now. So I don't know him that well. He lives down the street from my dad. I met him once. But I'm not going to give him the money to buy the car, because that wasn't in my spirit. But there's somebody in this church who wants the car, but they may not have all the money, so I'm going to give them the difference. They don't know this yet, but I'm going to give them the difference from what I would sell it for and what they missing. So they'll find that out next week. Is that all right with y'all? All right, so you see that little green car sitting out in the parking lot, then you know somebody done bought it from the church. But we'll see. We're supposed to talk about this later. So it kind of worked out for that individual because, and I'll tell you who it is later. You're going to find out anyway because I'm going to have her give a testimony. But the thing is, it worked out for her because she needed a car. She don't have a car right now. She really needs a car. And she's been paying Uber and somebody in her apartment complex, this guy give people rides to work. But, she said she's tired of doing that. But anyway, just want to throw that in. Credit. What do credit mean? It's an agreement in which a borrower, it's a contract, receives something of value now and agrees to repay the lender at some date and time. So we know in the future. So we know when we borrow money, what we do here. We sign another contract and they get 3 years? Because the average car loan right now is 7 years, brand new, 7 years. The average car payment is over $750 a month. Some are even $1,000. So, of course, if you get that, they're going to make you sign. But, your credit determines a lot of things. But, of course, we have to pay it back with interest. That's how banks make their money, with interest. And then the terms also refers to the borrowing capacity of individuals. So just because you see a certain car, that's why I always tell people when I give the class again on how to buy a car, one thing I talked about last time, I think it's been, I don't know how long it's been. It's been a few years now? I may have to give that next time. Anyway, what I tell people, when you go to the car dealer, you always have your own financing. Don't just tell them, I don't want to talk finance, I just want to talk price. Because that's what it gets you mixed up at. See, they send you the finance person trying to give you, low, how much can you pay? That's what all they want to know. And then they'll make it work that way, and then you still end up, in the end, paying full price for the car. Because once they get you down to what you can pay, you don't even think about the negotiating the price anymore, do you? No, because you say, I can pay $500 a month. That's all you care about. But you can also get it down where you can pay $450 a month. If you talk to them first and leave the finance person alone, go to your bank or your credit union, already have your credit. Because I tell them, you can't. I say, if you can beat this, I'll talk to you. Most times they can't beat what I got. So they just close the book and walk away. FICO score, type of score that makes up a substantial portion of the credit report that lenders use to assess an applicant's credit risk and whether to extend their loan. So, of course, every time you put in for credit, they're going to run your score. And depending on what your score is, depends on how much interest you're going to pay. Because the lower your score is, the more interest you're going to pay. The higher your score is, you should get the best interest rate. Especially if it's over 750, you should get the best interest rates they have. Because the max I think is 850. Is it 800 or 850? I think it's 850 if I remember right. Huh? Yeah, I think it's 850. Right. So the closer you can get to 800 or anything over, I would say anything over 775, you should get the best interest rate, especially if you've got a good credit paying on time history. And they look at that too. All right, question number 1. In your opinion, how do you know when you have too much debt? Somebody, tell me how you know when you have too much debt. When the repo man show up, what? Go ahead. I want everybody on YouTube to hear it. No.
When you have to come to your pastor to borrow money.
Yep.
Anybody. Yeah.
Well, you're right, because that means you don't have it for yourself. So it could be any situation, and that's a good example. So now everybody. That's what the whole point of doing this class, so we can kind of keep people within their range of what they can afford, so they won't. But the church, we're here to help people too. So that's part of what the giving is and the offering and everything like that, because we do have a benevolent fund for that. And I give to the benevolent fund basically almost every month. Yeah, go ahead.
The way I found out personally that I had too much debt, I was able to pay my bills for a while, but I kept getting stuff.
Right.
I kept getting stuff. And then my bills that I was able to pay, they started dropping off. Or I'll pay this, a little later. Or I'll pay it, not on time, but 2 weeks,
Right.
And it just went on like that. And why did I have to get that thing there? Why did I have to have that? Because it's setting you back.
Right.
Now, if I'd have used my head and used my sense, I would have just, I didn't have to get anything else. I could have stayed where I was paying my bills on time. So I knew I had too much debt.
So then you had to regroup and just start paying stuff down and start buying stuff, right? Okay. Well, as long as you came to a conclusion, because sometimes you got to have a revelation, and everybody's revelation is different. You got a question for him?
So what's the difference between a FICO score and a credit score?
Well, there's 2 different credit scores out there. FICO is the main one, but there's another one called, it starts with a V, Vista, I think. It's a credit, it was created by the banks, by the 3 credit score companies. You got the 3 main credit score companies, they created that. But the banks, for the most part, if you go, like I bank at Bank of America, every month they adjust my FICO score. They give me a new score every month. That's what they use. So, but the FICO score is normally higher than a Vista score, if I remember the name of it right. So depends on your bank will use the FICO, some of the credit cards will use the Vista. I think Credit Karma uses the Vista too. And if you see your FICO score and you see that, you want to know why the FICO score is higher, because the Vista's called credit score is more strenuous. So, but you want to know where you going to get your loan from. And like I said, my bank update my FICO score every month. Even your credit cards update your score every month. You just got to know which one to use. But if you're going to borrow from that bank that you bank at, you want to make sure you know which one they're using. So if you can go out there online, everybody got it. All you got to do is look for it. It's right out there for you. And it's updated automatically. And I got mine where it said they'll send me an email or a text message when it's updated. Then that way and the reason why you want to, even if you're not going to borrow nothing, you want to know if something happened. Because people do get, there's fraud out there and stuff like that. So you might want your credit score drop. Okay, why my credit score drop for? Something happened. You want to see what happened. And cause like me, like when I do like stuff in my house, I put everything on my credit card and when I buy it. And the reason why I do that is because I get points and all that. And then I try to pay it back before the 30 days is up, so I won't have no interest. But I get the redeem points, and I use that to buy gas during the year, 2 or 3 times a year, because I get gas cards from it. But anyway, but then sometimes when you do that, and depending on the time of month, it may drop your score a little bit because when you pay it, it may not got in time for it to change, for it not to change, which is no big deal. But then the next month, it'll go right back to where it was. Anybody got another question? Okay. Discussion 1, how to manage, that should be discussion 2, I think, how to manage debt. When we carry too much debt, it can be a heavy burden. Page 3. You see that rock? Some people walk around with debt on their back because they got so much debt. So debt versus income. Keeping your debt under control is important, and one way to manage your debt is through a percentage known as debt to income ratio. I'm not going to. The reason I want to talk about this because, like when you buy a house, the banks use a debt to income ratio to determine whether or not you can afford that house. And they're not saying you can't get the credit, but can you afford it? Because they don't want you to have two. Because banks they want your debt, the income ratio, to be less than 36% or less. And that's counting the whole mortgage payment. That's counting the principal, interest, insurance, and taxes. So I'm just going to tell you how to do it. But you can do this for anything, because that lets you, when you start getting over 30%, you want to keep your debt to income ratio less than 30%. Because that's what the credit score companies use for your credit card. So you want to kind of model that. So all you got to do is first add up all your monthly debt. This includes credit cards, car loans, student loans, other debts, and your house expenses. So your utility bill is not a debt really, because they don't report that unless you're not paying it. Your house expenses, rents, or mortgage payments. Then take the total of your monthly debt and divide it by your monthly gross. Now, the banks go by your gross pay when you're trying to buy a house. They don't go by your net pay. They go by your gross. So whatever that is before they take out taxes. And, of course, they're going to make you prove that by giving them a pay stub or something. And then they used to take all what you owe far as the total amount of, not the total amount of debt, but what your payment is. They divide that by your monthly income, and that determines whether or not what your debt to ratio is, debt to income ratio is. And then if you're over 36%, they're going to cut you back to get you down to less than 36%. But I always tell people, when we talk about how to buy a house, I always tell the people, and I tell y'all this all the time, keep your house payment at 25% of what the person makes the most in the house, not your income together. Because if somebody get laid off, that means you stressed out. So you take the person with the highest amount of income and you use that for 25% of that. So if somebody loses a job, and like, when me and Renee was traveling, she didn't, she'd lose a job when we leave, and she don't have a job when we get there. So, everything was based on what I made, because she had no job yet, because we were trying to get the household straight. We were trying to get all our furniture, trying to find it. We living in hotels, so, we trying to because I always try to buy a house wherever I went. So we based everything off my income, because we couldn't use hers anyway. She didn't have a job yet. And plus, when you move like that, you don't want your spouse to be working for like 3 to 5 months, because you got to find out how you get around. You could be getting lost. You don't even know where you're at. And it's before GPSs came out. So you want the house to get straight, get all the furniture in, children getting in school, so then you wait till everything settled down. And then a lot of times if I get there, I may have to go in the field training exercise. I could be there a week and I'm in the field for 2 or 3 weeks. So sometimes you just, so I always base it on my income. And that was really good because it kept our debt down. So when she worked, everything was just extra, really. So it kept our debt down, and we didn't have a lot of car payments. And so that's why we was able to do the things that I have now, what we had, because of that reason. So that's how you get it. Now, if you want me to sit down, I show this to people when they come see me, when I sit down with their finances. We actually calculate their debt to income ratio, but they have to give me the numbers. I can't have no monopoly money. I got money. I got to know what you got. I ain't going to tell nobody. And we sit there, I say, okay, you got too much debt. You over 40%. So when you get that, now we got to go through and see what stuff you got to just stop buying. And so I said, if you want to keep getting your nails and hair done, I'm not going to fight that. We're going to talk about everything else. So many lenders prefer the debt-to-income ratio to be around 36% or lower to qualify for loans. That's a little secret. And especially for houses. Page 4, if your debt-to-income ratio is around or higher than 36%, you may want to consider trying to lower it by doing one of the following things. Increase your monthly debt payment so you can start paying stuff down. Avoid taking on more debt. Hold off on bigger purchases. Recalculate your debt-income ratio regularly to track your progress. So hopefully that number is going down. So you should do it probably it depends on how you get your bills. You may get your bills in the mail and just stack them up. And when you get all your bills, then you do it like once a month. And that's how you figure it out. Unless you go to East website and see what your balance is. You can do that too and do it quicker. Yes, Tony. Right there.
I bought a car in 2020. My first time buying a car, because all my cars were like cash cars.
Right.
So it was the first one that I bought.
Pretty close to you, Mom.
I bought with my money, not my parents. And so one thing I learned from Pam's husband was he told me years ago that when you have a monthly payment, pay that interest as well, and you can pay it
You
off
go down quicker.
So that helped me because
That's
like
exactly right. That's a
car
good
loan,
technique.
6 years, I was done in half
Right.
because I was paying my monthly payment and my interest as well. And also, after I retired, I had more money, and after I got my car, they gave me a monthly amount. But like a month later, I guess they checked my credit score again, and they lowered my monthly payment because my credit score was so good. I
Right.
didn't know it was that good.
Yeah.
'Cause I wasn't checking it, but they lowered my monthly payment.
Now they did that for two reasons. One, because you deserved it, because you were paying your stuff on time and all that. But they also did it because they want you to pay on it longer. They said, we're gonna get her. You think she's gonna try to pay this thing off early? We're gonna lower the payment. And you still pay it off anyway. See, that's what they do. They do that on purpose. They ain't gonna give it to you unless you got good credit, but at the same time, they don't want you to pay it off because they want to milk that interest as long as they can. And see, they probably saw that you was making the payment and the interest on top of it at the same time. And really, I'm trying to pay my house off right now, and I'm making extra principal payments. Plus, I make extra payments based on the interest rate. I readjust it every year, and I divide it by 12, and I go ahead and change it. And then the interest been going down, so I just been keeping it as it was originally instead of me adjusting it. Now I don't do that no more, but I'm still paying the interest and the principal based on what that is. And so you're right, that make the payments, the balance go down. Payments stay the same because mortgage companies don't adjust your payment too much unless it's going up because your tax and insurance payment it's going to be higher. Go ahead.
My friend that moved back to town last year, he and his wife retired teaching in North Carolina. They sold their house in North Carolina. When they came here, neither one of them wanted to work, but they had their retirement money. But the bank would not let them get that house because they wanted the income coming in.
Yeah.
So
Even though you get
she went back to teaching for this 1 year. She taught so they can get that
so they
house.
get that house.
So why
That's
is
kind of
that?
messed up because when you get a pension, that's guaranteed money. I don't understand it. So I guess that bank had some tough rules right there. Because normally, if you got a pension, especially if it's a government pension, they take that. But every bank they got their own criteria. So you just got to deal with it. That's why you got to shop banks and credit unions. Because all of them are different. All right, that little illustration I got there, God and debt. Glorify the Lord with your money, purpose in your heart to achieve debt freedom. So we still, it's basically talking about giving, but at the same time, we want to get out of debt. So how to reduce your debt? So let's talk about that. How to reduce it. And then, of course, you can also not only just reduce it, but you can, become debt free too. So stop creating more debt if possible. Start paying off the lowest balance. So what you do, you take your lowest balance. And what you do is with the snowball effect, you take your lowest balance of say you line all your credit cards up or whatever, your loans or whatever. Which one got the lowest balance? The one you want to target first. You go ahead and make the minimum payments on the other payments. And then the one with the lowest balance is the one, okay, well the interest, don't even worry about the interest rate. Then you start paying that off with extra payments. And then once you pay that one off, then you pick the next one with the lowest balance and you do the same thing. So it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. And that's how you reduce and limit your debt. But at the same time, like I said, once you pay it off, at the same time, you want to stop creating debt too. So once you pay off the smallest bill, do the same process for the next one with the smallest balance until you pay them all. I just said that, but the thing is, that's what you do. And what that do when you do that snowball effect, it reminds you every month. And that's how you get instant gratification, because if you pay the lowest one off, then you feel like you can do it, see? So you want to start with that lowest one first, and then just pay extra payments on that. Everything else you make minimum payments on to make sure that you're paying on time. And then once you get that first one down, then you start on the next one. So now you can feel like you're making some headway. Because if you start just trying to pay all of them with extra payments one time, you're going to feel like you're just spinning your wheels. Don't look at the interest rate. You look at the smallest balance. That's what they call the snowball effect. So if you don't have that much debt, and you start with the smallest one. Now, throughout our lives, we're going to have, store cards and stuff like that. So sometimes you're going to have stuff continuously on there. That's just what life is. That's why I'm saying, you can do, your goal may be reduce debt or be debt free. My goal is to be debt free when I quit working. So, and the house is the main thing right now, that I'm either going to pay it off early. I got the money to pay it off now, but I'm just trying to use what I'm making to pay off the house while I'm still working. So question number 2, are there any debt that is considered good debt or bad debt? Name some examples. Do you know what a good debt is? There is some difference between good debt and bad debt. All right, so the good debt, in my opinion, is debt that you get that, you can get from a bank and pay the decent interest rates based on your credit score. Now, bad debt means you got to go to a pawn shop, get money, or you got to borrow from people, or all that stuff, because in those places like that, or bad debt is when your credit score is bad and you got to pay a higher interest rate. Even though it's maybe paying for something the same, but it's not good debt because of what you got to do to get it. You see what I'm saying? Some people got to go jump through hoops to get money to borrow because of their history. A lot of people, I feel bad for a lot of people that had bad, marriages where their spouse kind of messed up the money and then they starting all over again. And we have to come up with a plan to get them going. It may take about 6 months for them to start making progress on your credit score, but you see that all the time. And so they got to get bad debt just to get certain things because of that credit score. Go ahead.
Good debt and bad debt. Will necessary debt be the same thing as good debt?
Yeah, if it's necessary, right.
Necessary debt.
Yeah, we all got necessary debt. Like most people can't afford a car unless they get a car payment. And you got to get to work, so that's good debt.
Exactly.
Right. But if you down there, give me some examples how you get money and it's bad debt. Somebody else, I know somebody that has some bad debt. Some people who get on like drugs, they be getting the drugs for free, borrowing it from the drug dealer, and then they can't pay the debt back. And that's why people get hurt and get killed. That's bad debt. It's kind of extreme, but that's bad debt. So.
Well, I feel like constantly going out buying things that you want as opposed to what you need,
that's
and
exactly
it's a
right.
habit.
Yep.
That's bad debt too.
It is bad debt and that's why when we talk about in another financial Bible class, we talked about what's the difference between a need and a want. A need is something, you got to have food, shelter, you got to have a car, you got to have clothes, you got to keep your kids fed. That's needs. But wants is anything above that. It is. And sometimes, I was telling somebody today at work, they said, now how do you, when you go overseas and be deployed and you be gone for whatever year or so, what kind of mindset you in? I said, I'm in survival mode. I don't care about no clothes. I don't care about no car. I don't care, because Renee was back there paying the bill. So you think I'll think about a light bill? No. I'm thinking about getting something to eat, getting some rest, and trying to stay alive. And that's called survival mode. And most people, Americans don't, unless you're going through a bad stretch, most people don't feel just survival mode. But once I got back to the States, man, it's like I had a new revelation. Hey, because you have all that money accumulated, because you've been spending it, and then all the car dealers are waiting on you because they know everybody just got back. So, but the thing is, you got to stop yourself. And a lot of that, and see, one thing I give Renee credit for, because Renee was a shopper. She would shop every weekend. But when I was gone, she wouldn't buy nothing. And I said, how come you ain't buying none? She said, because I feel guilty. Because you overseas, I'm worried about you staying alive. What I'm going to be down in the mall for? So she just did the minimum, and every time I went somewhere, she was paying stuff off. I mean, whatever we had, she was paying it off. I said, I need to go more often. But by the time I got back, she gave me the checkbook, and I'm going to the store. That was her attitude. But the thing is, she got into the same mindset because she's thinking, well, I'm back here having, go out there and spend money when, he's not even able to do what I can do. So she just hunkered down. And she did that every time. But when I came back, though, that lasted maybe a week, and she was back to normal, which is all right, because we had everything budgeted out anyway. So, we just that was our relationship. So discussion number 2, understanding your credit. Why do I feel like I'm behind on my discussions? Okay, what page are we on? We got like 8 more minutes, 5 more minutes, so I'll be over it. Unless y'all got some questions. But if you got to leave and take some of the food, go ahead. Page 5. Which direction do you want to be headed toward? Bad credit or good credit? So, of course, we want to be headed toward the good credit based on the illustration. So how to improve your FICO score? So we're going to go through this real quick. Maintain a good credit score is essential. A good credit score, according to many lenders, used to be a FICO score of 620, but now they're talking about 680, and really you need to keep it about 700. Lower FICO scores typically are classified as higher risk, making it harder for you to get approved for loans or lower interest. There are many ways to help raise your FICO score, including the following. Make all the debt payments on time every month. That's the key. I don't care how much debt you got, you make your payments on time. If it means you getting it drafted out of your check, or you paying it online on bill pay, or you take it down there and pay it in person, like your grandparents used to do. They used to pay all their bills in person. Y'all remember that? They go every weekend, Saturday, they be on the bus or riding their car around. They gonna pay the light. They go pay in person because they want to make sure that bill get paid. They get a receipt and they walk out of there. That's how they pay their stuff on time. Lower FICO score, okay. So make all your debt payments, avoid borrowing too much, pay more than the minimum required payment if you can. To help monitor and maintain a healthy FICO score, it is highly recommended to check your score every 3 to 4 months. But I suggest now you check it once a month because of all the fraud and stuff going on. But minimum, check it every 3 to 4 months. You can check it and the reason why you can do it once a month now because the banks are publishing it once a month. And you can go to creditkarma.com and see it every day if you want to, because they adjust it every day. So you can, and you can get a free credit report. The government, this is a website, the government required that the credit score people give you a free report. That way it lists all your debts and all that stuff as of that day. You can get that once a year at that website, annualcreditreport.com. And then they'll mail it to you and send it to you. Or you can go to creditkarma.com, you can see it every day. So it just depends on how you operate. You may also want to consider enrolling in a credit monitoring service to help you stay up to date on your important credit information. Most people don't have to do that because now the technology now is where you can go out and check this yourself. But if you feel like you're not disciplined enough to do that, you might want to do that. Okay, you get a free score, like I said, from Credit Karma, from your Visa card, your MasterCard, Discover card, or your bank's website. And then, you go on your bank and you do bill pay, you got to find it. It's a section, like on Bank of America, it'll be a section like called My Dashboard. And the dashboard lists your FICO score. It'll tell you if you're overspending, it'll tell you like you spent less than you deposited last month. Or they'll tell you spent more than you deposited. So it's a dashboard to give you little things about your credit health and your banking health and your loan health, because they want you to keep that stuff straight because they want you to borrow money. So manage your credit. Most people have 2 credit cards. At least most people should have at least 2 credit cards. You need one for emergency expenditures. I've done been in places where, I remember I was going back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. My car broke down. I was in the middle. I was just crossed the South Carolina line going North Carolina where they have that place called south of the border. Y'all know what I'm talking about? I was in a little town called Rowan, North Carolina. And that was for cell phones. It was like in 84. I think I came home, me and Renee were getting ready to get married. And I went back to North Carolina, and my car broke down. And I'm out there, back then when your car breaks down, you lift your hood up, right? Because you can't call nobody. I was starting to walk back to the south of the border to get on the payphone. And then I saw this record. He said, he blew at me. So that meant I said, God, you sent me a record. I didn't get a chance. I walked maybe 2 minutes. I turned around, and he took my car to, I had a Pontiac, I had a Trans Am at that time, Pontiac Trans Am, and he took it to a Chevrolet dealer that was in that little town, because of course they got the same parts, so the same company, GM. And he asked me, he said, and I didn't have a credit card at the time. I didn't believe in credit cards. I didn't have not one credit card, but I had my checkbook with me, and I had my military ID and my orders. And I told him, I don't have a credit card. He said, how you gonna pay for it? I said, I'm gonna write a check. He said, you're in the military, right? I said, yeah, I showed him my orders, 'cause I always kept my orders in the car. They always tell you to keep your Army orders in the car. I showed him my ID card, and he said, okay, I think you're honest. I'm gonna let you write a check, because I used to be in the Army, and you're a soldier, so he let me pay for it with a check. So the first thing I did when I got back to North Carolina, I went and got me a credit card. Because if he didn't let me do that, I would have been in trouble. So I knew then I needed a credit card. Go ahead.
I had that same experience at south of the border.
Oh, you did?
My grandfather passed in New York, and my brother and I, we drove to New York in his car. Like you said, before the cell phones and everything, we broke down like 2 miles before south of the border.
Right.
And the same thing happened to us. We were able to get the car to south of the border. He had no money, no cash money. You know, we had cash money a little bit, but like you said, no cell phones. But I happened to see a car that had said Richmond County on it. So I had to get on a payphone, call my mom, and I asked some people in the car. They talked to my mom, and they gave us money to get my brother's car fixed. And they followed us all the way to Martin.
Well, see, that's good. See, that's God
happened,
looking out for you, see.
Yeah, it happened to Richmond County. We didn't know them at all. I hadn't seen them since. But I guess my mom talked to me, my kids in here, they coming from New York, almost home. Can you please pay for this, my car to be repaired? And they did, but that taught them, so that's the two.
How did we make it without cell phones and credit cards? How did we make it? I know. I tell the young people, I said, if I take your phone and your GPS away from you and your credit card, what would you do if you get stuck on the side of the road? You know, they don't have an answer. You know why? Because most of them don't even have a checkbook. So at least I had my checkbook with me. And I had to stay overnight to finish the story, and I told the lady in the hotel that was right around the corner I didn't have no credit card, and she let me write a check. So I got by. So that made me, I said, okay, Byron, you need a credit card. Forget this. So I went to the bank and got me a credit card within a couple of weeks. I learned that lesson. That's why I tell people to try to keep at least two, just in case you lose it or something happen or you get fraud on it. That way you have an extra one. And you're trying to max it, but you want to try to use your credit card twice a year so you can keep the card, especially if it's the one you done had long history on. I got cards I done had 30-year history on. I'm not going to lose them. So that's why you got to keep it. What do you do if you lose your credit card? What do you do? How do you even know the number? Let's say you got your credit card in your wallet right now. Do you have the 800 number and the credit card number written down somewhere? Because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. Because it's going to take you a while just to even get the card cut off.
Well, the first thing I do, if I think I've lost mine or misplaced it, I go on my phone and I block it so nobody else can use it.
Okay, well, that's good. That's one way. Now, you got your information on your phone, though, right, to block it. How you block it? Okay, see, some people don't have nothing. See, that's why you got to be able to know who to call. Now, what I do, since my phone got a lock on it, I kind of keep that in my notes on my phone. So if something happens, I can be able to call. I know the number, I know the expiration date, and they can block it. Or you go online and, and do the same thing if you can remember your password. But I'm trying to call somebody. Go ahead.
Okay, I've got a credit card that alerts you when you make a purchase. If it's a big purchase, you can set a limit and say if it's over $50, and they'll ask, is this you?
Yeah, my credit card is at $500. So, because I'm not normally going to spend anything on $500, so that means somebody's trying to use my card, or they send you an alert if they cut it off before they use it. Now, I would say for your credit cards, it should be you probably have a lower thing on that because your debit card, depends on how you use it. You may be getting a fraud alert every minute. So it depends on how you want to put it. Because I got it on my debit card too, and I got $500 on that also. So, biblical scriptures that relate to this subject, and we almost finished. Okay, in the Message Bible in Luke 14:20-30, if there's anyone here who is planning to build a new house, doesn't first sit down and figure the cost. So anybody buy a house, that's what you're going to do, right? You get the cost first. That's anything you do. So if you can complete it. If you only get the foundation laid and then run out of money, you are going to look pretty foolish. Everyone passing by would poke fun at you. He started something he couldn't finish. So that's why, you got to make sure, and this is probably during that time, people was getting money a different way, but when you go to the bank, you're not going to start nothing until you get, of course, the qualifications. But the whole point of this scripture nowadays is to say you can get the loan, but keep it under that ratio. Keep it at 25% of what, like a house. Like I said, go ahead, keep it. You got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a comment. I was thinking about what you're saying as far as borrowing money from people. This is kind of a funny story now, but I remember back when we was at the old church.
Yeah.
I borrowed $50 from, I ain't gonna call the brother's name, but I'm gonna tell you after service though. So I borrowed $50 from him, and it was coming up to Easter weekend, and my mom bought me a brand new suit, and I wore that suit that Sunday. That brother wouldn't speak to me for about three Sundays, because he felt like I bought a suit
with the money that you gave him, right, even though you got it from somewhere else.
Right.
See, that's yeah. People
and I was being petty, because once I found out why he was upset, I let him stew for another week before I told him it was my mom.
It's like I saw a TV show, a guy say he needed $1,000, and he took the money and went to Las Vegas. I thought you needed the money. No, I need to go to Las Vegas. That's what I need the money for. I didn't tell you why I needed it. I told you I needed it, and you gave it to me. Anyway. Romans 13:7, Amplified Bible, last scripture, rent to all being their dues. In other words, pay your bills on time, pay your taxes. To whom, this is the Amplified Bible, to whom taxes are due, revenue to who revenue is due. In other words, if you owe somebody, pay them. You got a loan, pay it. Respect to whom respect is due, and honor to whom honor is due. So in other words, this scripture is saying, pay your bills on time, pay your taxes, don't cheat on your taxes. Just pay, do what you're supposed to do. And the Bible is full of scriptures on, I got 250 scriptures in my computer on stewardship, debt, paying back money. The Bible is a good source. That's why, and I tell this story, a lot, I'm going to let it go after I say this. I had a good friend that I was in the army with, and he was Jewish. His name was Mike David. And I asked him one day, I said, man, I'm not trying to be stereotyped. And I told y'all this story before. I think some of y'all heard it. He said, is it true that the Jewish people are good at money because they follow the Bible principles? You know what he told me? He said, yes. He said, we are taught the principles of the Bible on stewardship and money and everything. And that's why people think that every Jewish person got money, which is in most cases, he said, it is true. And he said that if people just follow the scripture in the Bible, everybody, and use that in a practical sense, they'll be just like, because we stereotype Jewish people having money, don't we? We do it all the time. And in most cases, it is true. And he said that's why. And they do a lot of collective things together as a people, too. So that's another thing, because like Americans, like us, we don't want to mix our money up with family, We don't want to go into business with nobody. We just want to kind of do it on our own. But they're taught that, and that's how they give their heritage money down through the family, and that's how they build it up, and they just pass it down, and then it just grows. And we just trying to make sure that we got our bills paid and then we'll leave no burden on our kids. So, but anyway, summary, it's very important that we know how to manage our debt and credit. Our debt must be at a level that we can easily manage and pay. Good credit and debt management equals less stress in your life. Remember, your faith in God, your blessings from God, your financial wisdom, and your financial stewardship equals your prosperity. I'm a firm believer in that. And that's it. Anybody got any more questions? If not, we're going to take up an offering and go ahead and let Brother Ted go get the book.
Yeah, I was watching Channel 12 News midday, and they said something about that the other day. They were talking about finances and stuff, and they said that stress, as far as finances, it shortens your lifespan.
It does. And, you know, I tell people this all the time. Most divorce, there's top two reasons why people get divorced. One is infidelity, and two is finances. It could be in either order or both. And you find the root cause why people get divorced. That's those two things, or one of those two things is always involved. So I always tell people, if you and your spouse can get y'all spending everything together, that'd be half of it. Can make you half a reason why your marriage can survive. Go ahead, Brother Sid. We're gonna pray. Oh yeah, I'll give you some money too. All right, don't forget about the food out there now. But Jerry's going back to seconds.
Father God, I want to thank you for the financial teaching tonight. Father God, man, we speak good steward of what you allowed us to have, Father God. Father God, when this is all up to you, we all been on your feet, Father God. Father God, when we speak, everyone in any separate way, we pray today.
Amen.